left only because I felt the need to start my production company. That was the only reason. It was
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people think it was scandal. People love to say I was fired. It's all
But
these rumors.
so you wasn't fired.
I was never
It
fired.
wasn't the scandal.
It was not a scandal.
It wasn't one of the girls or any of the girls.
No girl ever said Carlos on the show. Like, it was never none of that. But that's the thing, and you know me. Listen, this could be a bad thing or not.
Okay.
I don't feel the need to defend myself publicly.
Carlos King is finally talking. And this time, the tone is different. No jokes, no slick confidence, no kingmaker energy. Just a man clearly feeling the heat as the spotlight turns on him in a way he never expected. Because after OWN quietly pointed the finger and basically said, casting chaos, that's on Carlos, the silence got loud.
Work harder to get what we deserve, right? And I was such a huge part of that, along with other producers and everybody else involved too. But I moved to Atlanta to do that show because I was invested in making it #1.
Fans started re-watching old interviews, old lives, old podcasts, and suddenly the story Carlos had been telling for years didn't line up with the story the network was telling now. The question everyone is asking is simple but dangerous. Was Carlos running the show or running from the truth? Because for a long time, Carlos didn't just work in reality TV. He owned the narrative. He spoke with authority, confidence, and certainty. He moved like a man who knew he had power. But when legal issues, public backlash, and network pressure started piling up, something shifted. And when OWN finally broke their silence and made it clear that they make the final casting decisions,
We're all the way real on this podcast today because I am pissed. Robin admitting that she hid her story from the world on the show that pays you is a slap in the face to everyone involved, including the audience. And the fact that you have the audacity to go on your podcast to reveal this. We spent this entire half-assed season with these made-up storylines about Chris Bassett. And yes, I'm gonna say made up because I allegedly was told that a few of the housewives had a meeting before filming about what the storyline was going to be, and that this Chris Bassett stuff was part of that conversation. I've always said there was something off about this season, and now I know what it is. None of y'all are living your real life.
it felt like a quiet but intentional move, almost like they were pushing Carlos forward and stepping back themselves. So now Carlos is responding, and what he's saying, it's not just a defense, it's a rewrite. But here's the twist, the internet has receipts, and they're not letting this slide easily.
It reminded me that you can't focus on the noise of the outside world. And unfortunately, a lot of people do. A lot of people focus on the noise, and a lot of people enter the dark space of the noise to benefit them. And when you are a person who lives your life with good grace, good intentions, and a good heart, no person, place, or thing can infiltrate your life.
Carlos King didn't just appear out of nowhere. Before the podcasts, before the viral clips, before fans crowned him the king of reality TV, he was a hungry creative trying to break through an industry that doesn't hand out power easily. He worked his way up behind the scenes, learning how reality TV really works, not just what viewers see, but what's controlled, edited, and carefully shaped. Over time, Carlos built a reputation for spotting personalities. He wasn't just looking for drama, he was looking for stories, people with real lives, real issues, real tension. That's why when Love and Marriage Huntsville took off, Carlos didn't just feel proud, he felt validated. He talked about the cast like he understood them better than anyone else. He explained why certain people worked for TV and why others didn't. And fans listened. They believed him. Because the way he spoke wasn't casual, it sounded intentional, like someone who didn't just suggest ideas but approved them. Carlos leaned into that image on his podcast, on Instagram Lives, in interviews. He positioned himself as someone deeply involved, someone shaping the cast, someone protecting the vision of the show. Cast members publicly thanked him. Viewers assumed he had final say. And here's the thing, Carlos never corrected that assumption, not once. But the deeper fans got invested, the more responsibility came with that power. And when things started going left, arrests, restraining orders, public scandals, suddenly being the man in charge wasn't so glamorous anymore. That's when the pressure started, and that's when the story began to change.
I always say if I had a time machine, I would go back to those moments. Like, I wouldn't do anything to help the world. I would go back to those moments to be in a restaurant and see the table flip. Just a background actor, you know?
Yes, no, listen, it was a hit of its time. And once again, we had no idea it was going to be such an iconic moment that was going to occur. So here I am, again, a junior producer, having the responsibility of making sure Danielle Staub had the book. Danielle wore a little black dress. She hands me the book upon arrival. I'm the only male producer amongst this female producing team. And they said, are you able to handle the book? I'm like, I can do it, but I can't. And this is season 1 back in 2009. There was no breaking the fourth wall. It was unheard of. So I have this book, this hard.
The real tension exploded when serious legal drama surrounding cast members hit the headlines. Fans were no longer just gossiping, they were demanding accountability. They wanted action, they wanted statements, they wanted someone held responsible. And naturally, all eyes went to Carlos. For years, he had spoken like the gatekeeper, so fans assumed he'd be the one to step in. But instead of decisive action, Carlos started saying something new. He said he didn't have the power people thought he had. He said OWN made the final calls. He said his role was more advisory than authoritative. And that's when the internet paused. Because, wait, wasn't this the same Carlos who talked about casting decisions like they were personal choices? Wasn't this the same Carlos who explained why certain personalities made sense for the show? Wasn't this the same Carlos who joked about people not making the cut? What nobody expected was for OWN to step in and back that narrative up. Partially. In a statement that felt calm but calculated, the network made it clear that they make the final casting. Producers can suggest talent, but the final decision rests with the network, period. On paper, that should have cleared things up, but instead it made everything messier. Because if Carlos didn't have that power, why did he act like he did for so long? And why did OWN stay silent while he built that image? Fans started digging. Old clips resurfaced. Old interviews were replayed. And the contrast was loud. In earlier moments, Carlos spoke with certainty. Now he sounded cautious, defensive, almost cornered. And then Carlos broke his silence.
When Carlos finally addressed the situation head-on, he didn't come out swinging. He came out explaining. He talked about how reality TV actually works behind the scenes. He said people misunderstood his role. He said his passion sometimes came across as authority. He insisted that he never claimed to have final control, even if it sounded that way. But here's where things get complicated, because even if Carlos didn't legally have final say, influence is still power. When cast members say he approached them, when they say he convinced them, when they say he shaped their storylines, that matters. When viewers see him as the face of the show, that matters. Carlos says OWN made the calls. OWN says producers suggest talent. Cast members say Carlos played a major role, and fans are stuck in the middle, wondering who's telling the full truth. What nobody expected was how much this would affect Carlos's image. The confident kingmaker suddenly looked like someone trying to distance himself from the mess. And in reality TV, perception is everything. People started asking harder questions. Was Carlos exaggerating his power before to build his brand? Or is he downplaying it now to protect himself? Was OWN comfortable letting him take credit until things got legally risky? The timing is what makes people uneasy, because the narrative only shifted once controversy turned serious, and fans don't forget timing. This situation didn't just create online debate, it created emotional fallout. Carlos has built his career on trust with his audience, on being transparent, on calling out mess when he sees it. So seeing him dodge responsibility, even if legally justified, feels disappointing to some viewers. And it's not just about him. Cast members are caught in the crossfire. Some feel protected, others feel exposed, and all of them are now part of a bigger conversation about how reality TV really works, and who takes the fall when things go wrong. Families are affected, reputations are questioned, careers feel unstable. Because when a network and a producer start subtly pointing fingers at each other, the people on screen feel it first. Carlos has always said he cares about the people he works with, and maybe he does, but caring doesn't erase confusion, and it doesn't undo years of messaging that suggested control. The emotional weight of this moment is heavy, because it's not just about casting, it's about credibility. Once viewers start questioning what's real behind the scenes, the entire foundation of a reality show feels shaky. And that brings us to the bigger picture. This isn't just Carlos King's problem, it's a reality TV problem. Networks love the illusion of strong producers, until that illusion becomes a liability. Then suddenly, lines are redrawn, roles are clarified, statements are released. Carlos breaking his silence doesn't end the conversation, it starts a new one, a deeper one about how much power producers really have, how much blame they're expected to carry, and how quickly support disappears when things get uncomfortable. At the end of the day, fans don't just want drama, they want honesty, they want consistency, and they want to know they're not being played. So now the question isn't just whether Carlos King had more control than he admits. The real question is this: when the cameras turn off and the lawyers step in, who really stands behind the story they sold us? Because silence is loud, and explanations, when they come too late, only raise more questions. This story isn't over. The tea is still hot, and the truth, it's somewhere between the receipts, the statements, and the silence in between.